Hi, I am from Washington, D.C., but I hail from Beirut, and I used to be based in Beirut until 2011. Higher? Can everybody hear me? Yes, perfect. I really want to thank our hosts and the conveners of this for bringing this wonderful creative force together today. And you know, building networks is a very powerful thing, and I'm really pleased to be part of this group today. And this meeting reminds me of how it all started in Lebanon in 2005 when I started working on this agenda. Lebanon was one of the first countries in the Middle East to explore the creative economy. I was then working for the British Council out of Beirut. And in 2005, Lebanon was coming out of a war period. We were in reconstruction, and there was appetite for the country to explore things that could brand the country as something different than just a war-torn country. And there was just a lot of interest in exploring a little bit further the creativity and the innovation that Beirut always had as a creative hub in the Middle East. So I and some people who happen to be in this room today embarked on a project to raise awareness about the creative economy and to map the creative industries. And to cut a story short, this was not an easy task. And there were many hurdles. There were ups and downs in political terms, in security terms. But what this did, it actually brought in so many players into the conversation over the years. And the study was imperfect, but the first recommendation in the study is that we need more people to put more money into this and do it better and join forces with us. And we're in 2014, so almost 10 years later, and I can tell you that the landscape in Lebanon has changed so much in terms of the creative economy. There are so many more people lobbying for it. There are so many people who know about it. Perhaps the legal and the government infrastructure is not there yet for obvious reasons, but the number of incubators, the number of entrepreneurship programs, the number of the awareness about this whole agenda has changed. But also in 2014, Lebanon is still very much in political and economic deadlock. We have no president. We have 1,300,000 refugees in a country of 4 million people, so the highest per capita in the world today. We have a national debt that is 145% of our national GDP. But Beirut is still a creative hub in the Middle East, and it's still the laboratory for creativity in the Middle East because its people believe it is and make it so. So if I want to relay something about the Middle East to you today, it is exactly that. It is the resilience and the ability of the people who drive this sector to rise above difficult situations and to call for a better future for themselves and the communities they live in. And I want to also throw something in, is that, because I'm talking about the Middle East and because this is something that I cannot not speak about, is that extremists and dictatorships have figured this one out. This powerful ability of a creative person to actually dream and to come out, to propel themselves of their immediate environment and to imagine something else and to use that dream to to actually change something around them and around their community for social good or for other things such as freedom, freedom of expression, etc. The extremists and the dictatorships have figured how powerful this is, and this is the first thing that they go after. They actually try to strip people out of their ability to imagine. They try to go after controlling the mind, limit, incarcerate. So they figured this one out because the first thing they go after is cultural heritage, destroying it, destroying memory, and paralyzing entire communities. And it's sad because we, at the other end of the spectrum, are still struggling to convince our governments and funding institutions of the importance of this. So that is just something I wanted to throw in. So the Middle East today that I'm talking about is torn by violence and conflict, and some of the things that you are seeing on TV are quite horrific. But there is a thriving cultural sector there that is led by very, very resilient and inspiring people. And I want to talk about the social role of those people in that space. You know, the transitions and the revolutions have unleashed an incredible cultural production in all its forms, and for many reasons, but I would like just to talk quickly about two. And I think that all the limitations that the artists were previously working within collapsed with the collapse of those regimes. So suddenly, the artists found themselves in a physical and a virtual place that was much bigger, perhaps at a greater risk for themselves, for sure. But suddenly they had more space and they could share their work with thousands of people in a click of a button. So that unleashed an incredible amount of work. Very, very interesting, very intense. The other thing that happened was the rise in the level of debate in Arab society during that period. You know, people felt that they could, you know, say what they thought or, you know, discuss things. And of course, this trickled down to the creative sector as well. So, you know, at both ends, from the audience perspective, you had a rise in participatory art, for example. We saw people doing graffiti on the walls, dancing in the streets. People wanted to reclaim their public space and their cities and use it. I don't like this. I want to do something different. I want to paint here. I don't think that space should be used this way. So we had all this participation that was coming out. From an artist point of view, the artists themselves were suddenly out of their comfort zone, out of the space where they usually exhibited their work, and they were in direct contact with communities they didn't know before. So that created a lot more work and a very different type of work. So it's not surprising at all that Arab artists have occupied a very, very important space and have fostered a very vibrant civil society in those past couple of years in the Arab world. Their work is very much about freedom, human rights, gender rights, justice, freedom, transparency, sometimes at great risk. And, you know, in front of so much violence and so much wars and conflicts, or difficulty, just political and economic difficulty, one wonders, you know, what is the role of the arts in there? And I can say for the Middle East, their role is incredibly important at this point, because they represent a non-violent cultural movement that is calling for peace and is calling for peaceful change at a time where the region is sliding into something very radical and extremist. They are the witnesses and the archivists and the recorders of what was going on. They hold that oral history that no one has captured. And their work humanizes conflicts. it reminds us all that at the end of the day, this is about people and their lives, and they communicate this to us through their artwork. And most importantly, they are helping to build networks, because sometimes the infrastructure is not there and they need support, and they strive and they work very hard to build networks and to use them. And I'm sure that in the next maybe 50 years, their work will certainly influence a new historical narrative for the region. So from Cairo to Palestine to Beirut and Damascus, projects and cultural manifestations are going on despite the regional conflict and have a very, very important role. And they're going on due to resilient, imaginative, creative people like so many of you in the room today. And just to give you, brief examples, for example, in Egypt, just this April, May, and June, the DCAF Performing Arts Festival that animates downtown Cairo took place, and they hosted local and international companies. And the recent collective called Cluster by Omar Nagati, who's an architect, is, with other multidisciplinary artists, are looking at concepts of public space and their democratization in Cairo, in a country where public space is very, very contested. In Syria, most of the art in exile that is coming out is the only source that is reminding an international community that this started as a peaceful demonstration of people calling for change peacefully. I do not see anywhere else a reminder of how the Syrian crisis, which is very bloody at the moment, has started. And one of the most sort of poignant work that I've seen recently is a public performance called Garden Speaks by artist Tanya Al-Khouri, which was shown in Birmingham and is soon touring and possibly to the US. And it is about the stories of 10 families who've had to bury their loved ones in their backyards because they could no longer go to public funerals. So it is a story about how the dead protect the living and the living protect the dead. Very simple stories, but it is just a collective. They are collecting those stories and this personal experience of people that no one else is. And in Palestine, the Kalandia International Biennale for Contemporary Art, despite the regional conflict and despite the recent war on Gaza, is opening on October 22nd. And the Kalandia Biennale is a manifestation that brings together seven cultural organizations in Palestine. And they celebrate contemporary culture. And they animate several cities. They connect them. They connect them through art. They connect what cannot be connected physically. They connect it through art. And that is very exciting. And Kalandia for the name of the famous checkpoint that also suffocates the West Bank. Kalandia also for the international airport that used to be their access to the world. Kalandia, the name of a village that is now separated by a wall. So Kalandia, the Biennale, is a meeting point for what is really a division. And all of these manifestations have an incredible impact on the lives of the communities, on the stories that are being told, on the people-to-people relationships that get formed by international people who come and visit those places. And this year, there are more than 100 artists participating in this manifestation. And the theme is going to be archives lived and shared. So exploring how archives can actually influence national identity, past and present and future for Palestine. And to conclude with Beirut, since we started talking about Beirut, within the midst of a huge political crisis with no president, spillover from the Syria conflict, in this past June, the Beirut Design Week, which is a week-long manifestation of design in all its form, very contemporary, took place in Beirut, very high international standards, So they animated the city and they brought community together when no political discourse could. So they were in 87 locations. They presented 17 workshops, up to 9 events a day, with exhibits, open studios, film talks, and of course the party at the end. So just to conclude, I would like to show 2 films to illustrate the power of the arts in bringing communities together in difficult times. The first film is very much geared towards drama therapy, and it is work that was done with Syrian women refugees in Amman. And it is based on one of the oldest plays in history. Of course, it's a Greek play, and it's called Trojan Woman by Euripides. The second film, I'm going just to show 2 minutes of it. Of course, if you all protest and stand up and want to see the entire 7 minutes, we will show it, maybe. But I'm going to show just 2 minutes, and it is the film very different, so very contemporary, showing the Beirut Design Week documentary that was commissioned. So I'm going to show 2 minutes of that after. Let me try and find them now. Here they are. Do we want to dim the lights somewhere, or are you okay? No? Shall I just show? Yeah.
كنت أيتها الأم زوجة قائد عظيم. زوجته عيد. وأنا صغيرة حلمي إني مثل. أنت ماني مصدقة إن الحلم اللي كان أنا صغيرة إنه هلا رح يتحقق. بعد ما أنا بحكي عن بلدي. وماني حابة أطلع بهالصورة هاي كنت.
فيعيش حاضرا مؤلما وروحه تحن إلى سعادة ماضية. يعني هذا المقطع أكثر شيء ببكي. نحن تركنا بلدتنا الأساسية، صار كثير القصف، صرت بدي أدور حياة أفضل لأولادي. النص بحكي عن شيء حقيقي عنا، مع أنه هو قديم بس التاريخ عم يعيد نفسه.
بالنسبة لهيجابي كثير أنا حسيت قريبة يعني مني. هي زوجة ملك طروادة، فقدت كل ما تملك يعني من عائلتها لأحفادها، مثلنا نحن يعني كانت عايشة ملكة ببيتها. ما قالت أنا كنت دير الملك وحركه كمكوك يعني هلأ شو، ونحن هيك صفينا يعني. اجتمعنا بأخواتنا السوريات وكل وحدة عم تتعرف على حياة الثانية.
طلع إلينا تشنجي. لا البيت بيتنا ولا المكان مكاننا ولا البلد بلدنا. لا من ساعة بلشنا المشروع دخل شيء جديد عندنا بحياتنا.
إحساسي إنه في عندي صرخة وبدي أصرخها، بدي العالم كله يسمعها. يا ترى في نتيجة؟
طروادة لم تعد الآن إلا ركاما من الخراب ودخان الحرارة.
And now the second movie, the Beirut Design Week.
Beirut has a history. It has a history that goes very far back about segregation, about this East and West notion. I mean, this is kind of the basis of a lot of the political turmoil that we've been having. But at least if we can all think of this bigger community on an interest, such as design or any cultural matter, then maybe this is a reason for people to be able to communicate much easier together.
Seeing also the damage of the war, the vibrance and the people and the passion they have, I think it's really inspiring.
After my visit with the Secret Service, they said, okay, you're free to go now. Welcome to Lebanon. A mixture between Ibiza and Detroit. Like real heavy, dark, radiant scenery, but also beautiful landscapes and roads and beautiful buildings, beautiful people, and that mixture, that clash is really, it's amazing.
I designed for social impact. Well, 7 years ago I started the Tea House, and now we're here with 7 designers, but you can see downstairs what we're moving out.
We're trying to create this platform for designers in Lebanon to think that, okay, now we've got a space where we can actually go exhibit our work, talk about it, and be as important, let's say, as the other fairs that are happening in Milan and London.
My name is Mieke Meijer. We have found a small design studio in the Netherlands, and I really wanted to see some more than what we are used to.
I think I was meant to stop here, so I will leave you with this because it lasts 7 minutes and I don't want to run. It was just an opportunity to show you two very different situations working in the arts. Thank you.